let's get into the meat and potatoes of the blueprint. Now, we've spoken about leverage a few times on this podcast, but we're going to look at it in a different way today. There's kind of two sides. One, from being a successful brand, successful business, and when to put, or if to put your people, quote unquote, on. And then, of course, on the other side, when can you expect to be put on, right? We watched an interview, two interviews. One with Rich Paul on Rap Radar and Kevin Hart on Impulsive. And they brought really good perspectives when it comes to leverage and when it comes to putting people on that I would love for us to dissect, go back and forth with. You know, we've been highly documented that me and Moose looks a little bit different on this topic. So hopefully there could be some common ground with this one. If not, it's great conversation. Let's get to it.
Try to keep leading by example. When you can work with your people, work with them, especially if they're capable of doing the job. Mm-hmm. And so I think oftentimes people get it construed in terms of, oh man, you got on, you should put me on. No, I got on, you should put yourself in a position where you're capable of being put on. Yeah. That way, when I do give you an opportunity, we both look good, right?
At the end of the day, if you're a work for hire and they decide not to hire you no more, you're just not hired if you built nothing. Now, if you are a work for hire, and while being a work for hire, you build your likeness, and that likeness gets you into the rooms where opportunities exist to make you a partner, owner, investor, face, and those ideas and those concepts take you to a space of future opportunities to invest, build. Well, now, if you're a part of things that have worked, things that look and now show success, it's all built off of a real resume. So you're no longer a work for hire, you're a proof of concept.
Yep.
Bars. Moose, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is interesting, and I obviously understand why, you said what you said about we usually don't see eye to eye on this concept, but I think as you spend enough time in an industry, you understand. Now, here's why I typically say, phenomenal points, by the way, by both Rich Paul and Kevin Hart. I totally get what they're saying. But here's why I say leveraging is not for everyone, all right? Leveraging is not for everyone.
I wish I had the sound effect of doom, 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 doom.
Yeah, I just, you know why not? But I just think, honestly, some people just don't know how to look beyond a current circumstance or situation that they're in to see how 1 + 1 can equal 3. Now, there are some scenarios where you could say, okay, I could see 1 and 1. Like, I could see that math adding up because there's a unknown variable there that you do gain in the process. What I am learning, though, and I can share this from experience, is that as long as you're involved in an opportunity that is teaching you something, right, there is leverage there that you might not be even aware of. So the way I feel I've always translated leverage is that I'm putting up with something, or I'm compromising a certain value or a certain portion of what I feel I deserve or am worth because of this undisclosed type of thing I'm getting in return. And by that, I mean, it could be value that is not always monetary, right? So it's like, okay, let me utilize the situation, make the most of it so that I can use it as a springboard to my next opportunity. So that's how I've always viewed it. My philosophy was, why can't we all operate in the each one, teach one mentality? Meaning that if I find a way to get from the first floor or from the ground floor to the 10th floor, how can I send that same elevator back down to bring the rest of my people up at least to the 7th, 8th, or 9th floor, if not the floor that I'm on? Now, that works in a hypothetical scenario when everyone thinks and feels and operates the way you do, right? In the sense of, oh, if the next person gets to a level beyond me, they're gonna look out, send the elevator back down so that we can all be on equal ground. In most cases, I don't wanna say people don't want to look out for their people, but I can understand why it's sometimes not possible. You know, because we're talking about Rich Paul, when you look at LeBron's camp, with the exception of maybe Mav Carter, the people he played basketball with in high school, LeBron, those are not the core people of his team.
Right.
You know, like you would think, okay, wait, the core five, I forget what they called them when they were all in high school, like they were the buddies that went on this run and did this whole history. You would think those are the people that are on his team now that are helping him structure this billion-dollar enterprise. That's not necessarily the case. And I don't think he's not wrong for it.
Right.
As you gain life experience, you start to see, okay, I can't hand you a ticket if you can't. It's a nice way to say this.
There's a mean way you say it. I want to know the mean way.
But you know, I try to be nice. I'm a nice guy. I'm really a nice guy.
But we know this. That's why it's okay to be mean once in a while, because we already established that you are nice.
We already established that part. No, I just you know, I think it's difficult for someone to give an opportunity if by granting you that access, I lose the position I'm at, right? Or I risk losing the status that someone is, you know, that someone has achieved. So I think that's why when you look around and you see stories of successful teams, most people are going to help and look out and all those things, but carefully. It's done with some level of cautiousness. Just because I don't think anyone is willing to bring their people on at the risk of losing their own status or their own position.
I'm with that. So, okay, so let me ask you more on the person on the other end, right? Because, no, actually, let me ask you from the person who is successful in a certain sense, right? Is there a sense of feeling guilt? Like, what is that? What do they call that? Like,
survivor's guilt in a sense?
That what it is, right? That's what it is. So you come in with a certain group, and now there is a certain level of success that you've seen. How do you pick who gets put on, who comes through, or who kind of needs to prove themselves a little bit more?
Yeah. You're going to make mistakes. I think most people do make mistakes, right? Because I've made the mistake in the very beginning. You always try to hire your friends because they're your friends. They're the only ones you know, really. And so you're starting a business. You look around like, who am I going to hire? Oh, come on, man. Let's just try and make this thing work. And very quickly you will find out who was cut out for this and who was not.
Right.
I think what most people have to do if they're if we're looking at it from the role of the successful individual, they just have to trust their intuition. Mm-hmm. Right? Trust your intuition. If you feel, okay, I know this person's talented, but man, I don't trust him around money. Just don't let them handle the finances. Like, put them in an area where they know they can excel. Shameless plug, definitely take the flight assessment. I mean, Lowkey, like, that's a big part of it too. I think that fixes the conversation.
Take the flight assessment. There you go. That's the answer to everything. I'm with that. I'm with that. Flightassessment.com. Talk about it later, but flightassessment.com. Slight plug. So the bad thing is that I think I come from both sides, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to speak to, let's say, the 9-to-5 person or the person who is in the environment of something of success that they've helped or that they've been around. And now it's like, okay, can it be my turn or whatever? So I look at it in two different ways with this, where you still want to build your own with leveraging some of the skills by being around this environment, by helping out with the success. Build your own so you can have your own identity, right? Because you almost set yourself up for disappointment when you are helping somebody else build something and they do not give you what you expect, right? We see many success stories like Kevin Hart with his plastic cup boys and buying a whole bunch of cars for them and going on trips and everything like that. And so, you hear things like Floyd Mayweather and, making sure everybody has their own and investing in their businesses, whoever was on his team. So you hear about some of these big 1% situations and you're like, oh, if you've gotten this level of success, it's on. And you're going to get highly disappointed, especially when that wasn't even talked about. Like there is always kind of this sense of expectations of if I help you build this, you're going to look out for me in some way, shape, or form. This is going to be mutual in some way, right? Because you realize as their value went up, yours did too, right? So I look at it where you want to leverage the skills based off how you've helped this to be successful, this to execute, whether you're in a 9-to-5 or whether in a situation of being around the success. Let me get these transferable skills and start to set up something of my own, right? Now, not everybody is meant to have their own. And I'm not saying have your own as far as your own business, but more of your own name, right? And I'm just talking from a branding standpoint, right? What Kevin Hart said in that last part, which is like build the likeness, right? Where people see that if you are around, you add value. So that doesn't mean you had your own business, but you instantly being in the room adds value. Mm-hmm. So this is where I say, whether it's from a branding standpoint or just establishing yourself of being that person, right? That person that helped with the success, I would say lean on that. Now, going from the separate side of, okay, there's a little bit of success where there's a lot of success, who do you put on, right? And this is where the battle of loyalty comes in. This is the battle of, well, what makes the most sense revenue-wise? What makes the most sense scalability-wise? That doesn't always mean revenue. And so you could get really hurt off of the loyalty part. We all started this together. Let's do this together. But we got to go with that saying where it's like, and because I'm butcher it because I'm going to say it, but it's like those people who you started with is only going to get you so far. There's a whole nother way, but I didn't want to butcher it. But it could only get you so far, right? And so you have to acknowledge that. Just like how Moose said, where there was other people in LeBron's camp in the beginning, and all we really know is Mav and Rich Paul. Those are the only two we really, truly, truly know. But think about going back to what I said earlier, where because they built their likeness. Like Mav is good on his own, but still is attached. Rich Paul is good on his own, extremely good on both of them, extremely good on their own, still attached, right? So, and they took that first part of, okay, LeBron did this. let me take that and let me create my likeness. So from the success side, you have to be willing to acknowledge those people who see it working, not even all the way successful, see it working and starting to build something that can help in totality the full mission. Not only the ones that are just riding the coattail and being like, hey, we did this all together. That's great. And when I'm done with this, you are too. Because the value is what I've put energy towards. So if I put energy towards it, you are valuable. If I don't put energy towards this, you are no longer valuable. So here's like the two side of it, but I do believe in all of it. Are we building our likeness as the number one person or as the 105 person? Are we building our likeness to continue to hold value and not be only subjective to whether this is successful or not, or whether the person has energy on it or not? So that's kind of how I look at this leverage situation, especially based off how Rich Paul and Kevin Hart said, because like you said, if from that second part, if you are person for hire and it's no longer needed, you're not a person for hire. But if I know that your likeness is of value, and then we continuously see it, and then we can see different opportunities from an investment, equity, partnership, all these different things, then stay on. Stay right here. We like you.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because there's almost two completely different approaches of, do I play the loyal game and I make sure I'm for my crew, even in the spaces that they're not here with me, or do I represent myself? Because I think that's really the two sides of the coin, that when you talk about this leverage conversation or just this specific example in general, this is the thing that most people have to decide on. And at the end of the day, I can't tell you that one is better than the other or one is right and one is wrong. I think it really just depends on how you're wired and what makes sense for you. You know, I figured out early on, playing the leverage game is just not my way, because I feel that it's not transparent enough and it doesn't make clear what the expectations are. There are some partnerships that are just so easy to carry that they make you want to stay loyal to. You're like, yo, why would I even do anything outside of this setup when talking about money is easy, having difficult conversations is easy, when it's good, it's easy. Like, you know, it's just worth it. And so I think some of those opportunities, and you'll know, like, the one thing I want to say on this part here is just, I want to emphasize by saying, trust your gut. Like, trust your gut.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So are you not a fan of leverage, maybe due to past situations that wasn't transparent to fully trust the leverage? Like, if it was transparent enough and you saw here at this milestone, this is what's going to happen, and that's the situation, would that possibly change your mind?
Like, I think if it's gonna work, it's the other, because look, leverage, the way I see it is, you're leaning on something to almost carry the weight of whatever is holding you down, right? Like, think of it from a space standpoint or a physics standpoint. You have to lean the weight onto something else to lift the weight off of this, right? And so there needs to be transparency in the beginning from that person. It was like, hey, let's do this together. I want you to use this as an opportunity to leverage off of, you know, and I just don't know, would someone in that status, let's say the person who is more successful than, would they have that type of conversation to give someone the opportunity? Because I could also see it from the position of them. If I'm more successful, right, and I'm seeing someone who's up and coming and saying, hey, lean on me, take full advantage of me. How do you know this person won't maybe go too far? Like, so I can see it from both sides. I just think it's an uncomfortable conversation in a sense to say that. So like, I can understand why there lacks transparency in the whole leverage game, but at the same time, it's difficult for me to thrive there without it. So for me, I just ease up on the leverage game. But I do now that the way you broke that down as far as really making a name for yourself, I do think that's where I've always said pride, but I think that's probably what I intend to do, is just to represent myself well enough that regardless of what happens, oh no, you gotta respect this person's, the way he carried himself, you know, the way they showed up. So I think that part just, it fits me more. Like it just, you know, feels right. Feels right.
Yeah, and the only reason why I asked is because I think at a certain point, you don't accept every opportunity for leverage, right?
Yeah.
There's certain points that you've done enough to where it isn't, I don't need to play the leverage game, right? But I think in situations that you've never been in that space or in that type of, let's say, even from a situation of a business that's only made 6 figures to then working with a 7-figure to then 8-figure, right? Like you may still want to play the leverage game a little bit to the different levels of that you're working with, of course, setting certain boundaries, that whole nine. But I know that before, the leverage game has stopped me sometimes. A bad leverage game has stopped me from certain opportunities that could have been a good leverage game. So now I'm more open to just being like, is this something that I could really come up on in different ways and not just from a money standpoint? Is this something I've ever done? I can't just sit here, look at my past, know my value, right? Mm-hmm. But that's why I ask, because it's like, if things were a bit more transparent in business, would it maybe change it, since especially, you know, gathering some of these skills is going to make you better with your likeness? So it doesn't, I mean.
That's a good question.
Yeah, one of those questions. But, you know, in that same context of leverage and, you know, one seeing some type of success, it's said that in this year, this age, we are in a level of complacency where we are either entitled or technology has made it seem as if we could be a little bit loose or lazier, right? And so in the same interview with Rich Paul and then LL Cool J, who was on Wallow and Gilly's podcast, where talking about, you know, sometimes just because you see a little bit of success doesn't give you the right to be lazy.
Having the #1 pick isn't the end all be all, and getting fired isn't the worst thing in the world. Mm-hmm. And what I meant by that is and I said after that, it's everything in between, that resilience to continue to move forward.
I know that there are other ways to monetize your life. I understand that, but even in the new era, dealing with the new economics, being lazy ain't the answer.
No, on no level.
I don't care on what level you put it. The lazy thing does not work. So, you know what I'm saying? What you gonna do? You know, you have, you know, people that are, you know, you got some people that are overwhelmed by artificial intelligence. You have other people that understand they got to utilize it as a tool. You know, it's all about how you utilize the moments in your life.
So I brought this up because, and it's funny because I posted a bit ago about, okay, we strive for this viral moment. Some of us like really, I want to go viral. But it has nothing, it means nothing. It doesn't show any type of success until we can look at your past and what you're going to do after. And what I love about what Rich Paul said is like, what has happened to me doesn't really determine anything, right? Like, it is what it is. I got #1 draft pick and it can all go away tomorrow. I could get fired from that same #1 draft pick. That doesn't determine how valuable I am. But what am I doing in between? What am I doing to keep me relevant, to keep me on top of my game? And when LL Cool J was just like, some of us are just lazy based off, once again, the entitled and technology. And we see people from my field making so much money on social media. So we think we could just post a few times and the money's going to come in. Hello, I'm ready. Viral, millions of dollars, Mr. B status. And you're like, nah, that's not what happens, right? And once again, just staying on top of the game when he brought up AI of like, am I incorporating some of these things so I can stay on top of my game? Musa, I want to ask you, what are some of the things that you believe keeps people entitled or feel as if they don't have to do the work? Because it is, what the work ethic was growing up before us is way different than what it is now. I don't think it's right or wrong, but it is different. Mm-hmm. So to you, what are some ways that, like, one is a sign and then two, to not be so in that way?
Yeah, I think the first one is people are not accurately measuring value, right? When you don't know how to properly measure the value of something, you can also lose track of the value that you're bringing to a particular situation. And so if you evaluate what you're bringing to be more than what it actually is, you feel entitled to ask for more than what you deserve. And you may not feel entitled. Like, I don't think anyone ever goes to a negotiation table saying, I feel like I need to get paid more than what I'm worth. But the reality is, because you miscalculate the value, or you don't understand how value works in a particular ecosystem, within a business, within a brand, within even in a relationship, when you're not clear on how value is calculated and really brought forth, you start to misconstrue or miscalculate what you're bringing to the table. And so it comes off to the other party like, dude, you're entitled. You have no clue what this is actually worth or what's the value of what you're bringing. Now, I'm not questioning people's value or saying that they're not worthy or not, but that's the reality behind it. So it breeds a level of selfishness that others start to see in that mentality of, oh, I feel as though I'm entitled to this or I deserve this, although I may have not done the necessary work to get it. And that's a big part of it, right? So like literally there is a situation that has happened over the last couple of days where and the one thing that I try to do in a lot of these situations where it puts you in a position to see that someone is coming off as entitled or selfish or these, I try to do more listening than just attacking, like, how dare you, or go in that mode. So I try to understand, like, why do you believe this is what the value should be in your favor? Help me to understand. And if you're truly knowledgeable or you can truly represent yourself in a way that makes it evident that this is what you're worth, then by all means, because you can articulate it, you probably do deserve it.
Right.
What I find very interesting is that most people who request these, and let's just say in the business world, usually it's obnoxious salaries or very high comp plans. It's usually around money, in the business world at least.
Right.
When you ask to justify or really help to make sense of why they feel this is the right way to do it, the responses that are given are very general, broad, low-level answers. Someone who's really worthy of, let's say, the utmost compensation or the highest level of value, whatever they specialize in certain things. They bring forth a level of knowledge that you only gather through dedicating yourself to a craft, to spending enough time mastering something that you can almost shortcut an entire 5 years into 2 years because you're just that good. And so when you ask for the bigger piece of the pie, and I'm just generally speaking, and then you're asked to represent yourself or say why you feel that is necessary or why you feel that's the right way to go about it. But the only thing you can speak about or the only thing you can mention are just basic generalities. It's like, hey, why do you believe you should be the leader? Well, I think a good leader has good communication skills. And, I know how to talk. It's like,
I know
come
how to talk.
Really, that's how you're going to. So I noticed that, number one, it's not accurately measuring the value of the situation and what you're bringing. And so you feel that you deserve more than what you might be getting. And so you ask for more. And then even worse is when you feel that what you've done in the past is enough for what you're asking for today. So you begin to rest a little bit and say, oh, no, I'm chill. Like, oh, you remember what I did last year? And in today's world, just with the way things are shaping up, something that was relevant 3 years ago is not even really applicable today.
Right.
Everyone's going to talk about COVID. Well, COVID is long gone. I mean, things that were relevant in the COVID era are just not here today. I mean, and the biggest lesson to learn from that is Mark Zuckerberg and the metaverse. Having spent billions of dollars in taking such a huge bet on this thing to work, hoping and really even having the evidence that this is going to be the way of the future, where is that stuff now? Right? So the world is showing you that what you did before, even within 3 years, if you're not constantly innovating and working on your craft and looking for competitive advantages and finding a way to upskill or add skills to your overall career or whatever it is, it's tough to add the same level of value on something that was relevant 3 years ago. It's like that car that you drive off the lot. It was brand new in 2020, but today that car is 3 years old. So it's just, you don't get the same money for it.
I don't have to go past that. That's a fact.